So everybody, we'll let some people join like we always do, and then we'll get started. Got some music coming here in a second. What's up, Mom? What's up? What's up? Try to get some music playing here in a second. Come on. Let's try on this one. What's up? PTSD. Alright, try this one real quick. Gonna let a few people get started, get joined, and then we'll get started. Thank you, guys. There we go. All right. What y'all want to talk about tonight? So I have a full slate of NFL top 50 players tonight. Also, I have the top 5 NBA players under 22. So a lot to get on, guys. Go ahead and share this, like it, and comment down below, and then we'll get started. All right. Hey everybody, thank y'all for joining. Hey, what y'all want to talk about tonight? We got about 9 people on the live right now, so I'm going to go ahead and get started here in just a second. Let this play out for another minute or two. We'll go ahead and get started, guys. What y'all want to talk about tonight? Hey, if you're watching, let me know. It's not really telling me who's watching right now. All I see is right now is my mom watching. So if you're watching, let me know. Let me know what you want to talk about, guys. All right, guys. All right. So, I just want to welcome everybody in to Kicking It with Crowder, episode 28. It is March 4th, 2020. Exciting stuff tonight with the NFL Draft. NFL Draft is in 50 days, so I will give you my post-combine big board, top 50 players entering the 2020 draft. So who do you think will be my best player overall in the draft? If you think you know, go ahead and comment down below. I know a lot of people think, Joe Burrow could be there, Chase Young, Isaiah Simmons, Derek Brown, Jeff Okudah from Ohio State. So a lot of names there to watch out for. Also, stay tuned for that. That's going to be a little bit later in the show, guys. So I'm going to go ahead and talk about my top 50 players, give you some comparisons, also what I have them rated. The NBA season, what's up, Akari? The NBA season is winding down and about 20 games left. The league has so many veteran superstars. The league is in good hands with players such as LeBron James, Giannis Antetokounmpo, Russell Westbrook, James Harden. The list goes on and on. But the youth movement in the NBA is phenomenal right now. And Luka Doncic and Zion Williamson play tonight. And, it really got me thinking, who would you rather have next? What's up, Goose? What's up, Cam? It really got me thinking, who would you rather have the next, 10 years or so? Would you rather have Zion Williamson or would you rather have Luka Doncic? I'm going to give you that answer later on in the show. I have my top 5 players under 22 as well. So we got NFL mock draft, NFL big board stuff. We got my top 5 players under 22, so get ready for that later on. The college basketball season, guys, has been, an up and down season. The conference tournaments are about to start happening. The season's kind of winding down. But there's been a lot of parity in college basketball, and it's kind of made it unexciting to watch. You really don't know who's going to win. and some people say they like that. I like a couple dominant teams up at the top. Last year was Zion Williamson and what they were able to do, the Duke Blue Devils, although they did not win the title. What they brought to the college basketball game was just very, very exciting. Having 3 top 10 draft picks on that team last year, and watching Zion Williamson and the show that he brought every week. Every gymnasium he stood in, you knew what was going to go on, and Zion Williamson is a problem in the NBA. Guys can't guard him. I mean, he's so strong. He's so physical. His second jump is just amazing, and college basketball is missing that star. A lot of guys, James Wiseman from Memphis is sitting out. LaMelo Ball and a couple other guys are playing overseas. Cole Anthony from North Carolina hasn't really getting it done so far. So it's kind of missing that that great team that you're. What's up, Tyler? That great team that you're normally used to seeing in college basketball. There's not. So which teams have the best shot at the title, guys? I wanted to hear your opinion. I have these 3 teams as my favorites going in: Kansas, Dayton, and FSU. Those are my 3 teams to kind of watch in the NCAA tournament. They are very, very powerful teams, and you should definitely watch out for them. So let me know what you guys think down below. Who has the best shot at an NCAA title? What's up, John? What's up, JD? So baseball spring training is in full swing with the season starting March 26th, and with a lot of people talking about the Houston Astros scandal. MLB's been in the news a little bit more than it normally would in spring training. So very exciting stuff. I know a lot of fans who maybe aren't really baseball fans are going to pay attention more because of this Houston Astros scandal. So maybe, although it's bad for the game, may end up bringing them more exposure and things like that. Also, the season starts March 26th, so baseball season is right around the corner, and the XFL has completed its 4th week. I'm going to, and it's also had 1 million views each week, so that's very, very good stuff right there for the XFL. I'll give you an update on all that later on in the show. So, guys, a lot to talk about. Thank you so much for listening tonight. If you're joining on the live, or if you're just live streaming, or if you're streaming it after the fact, remember to go to my Facebook page, Kicking It with Crowder. Give it a like. Give it a follow for all my content. I put out a live podcast every Wednesday at 9 o'clock, as well as I will drop the podcast to Apple, Spotify, and the iHeartRadio app tomorrow. So if you're on the live, guys, don't forget to post. Don't forget to share. Don't forget to comment and like down below. Also, if you're a new listener, remember you can find me on Apple, Spotify, and the iHeartRadio app. So don't forget to subscribe and download today. So also, last week on my locks, my 3 picks I make every week in basketball, I was 1-1, so I tied a game. Maryland, I had them -1. They actually won by a point. Also, I had, let's see who else I had. I had LSU +5 over Florida on the road. They lost. What's up, Brent? And also, I had +5 Boston against Utah. They ended up winning the game. So I went 1-1-1, bringing my season total to 11-5-1. So I have my picks going on later in the show. And but right now, guys, I want to talk a little bit about the NFL draft. So the NFL draft is a big, big deal. I know it's exciting, and I really, really get up for it every year. I'm very, 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 very excited to bring you this tonight. And I just want to start with kind of the breakdown with my top 50 players. So I got 50 players on the board, and these are my top overall players. This isn't what I think they're going to go mock draft or anything like that. This is my top 50 players with their draft grade, watching the tape, hearing comparisons, things like that. I've come up with my own board. I've not followed anyone else's board. I've looked at other people's boards, but this is my own personal board. So I'm very, very proud of this board right here, and I've been working on it for a few weeks and came up with it. And it has, surprisingly, or not surprisingly, it has 22 SEC players on the top 50. So out of the top 50 players I have for the NFL draft, I have 22 of them from the Southeastern Conference, guys. So if you're paying attention every year with the SEC normally has the most players get drafted in the first round. They also have the most players invited to the combine, most players drafted overall. So this is no shock here that I have 22 SEC players, followed by the Big Ten. I have 10 players from the Big Ten in the top 50, as well as 5 from the ACC, 5 from the Pac-10, And then rounding out that, I have 3 from the Big 12. So out of the 5 power conference teams, I got 45 players. The rest are either from independent or lower division football. So I want to go ahead and get started and tell you who my number 50 overall prospect is. What's up, Josh? Guys, and don't forget to comment, like, and share down below. Who do you think is going to be number 1 on my big board? And we're going to go ahead and get started. Guys, please comment down below and tell me what you think. Tell me what you think of my big board and what I need to improve on it. So I'm going to go with Chase Claypool. He had a phenomenal NFL combine. He's a 6'4" receiver from University of Notre Dame. He ran a 4.42 at 238 pounds. I mean, the guy is just skyrocketing right now. He is the biggest player. There's only 2 players his size. There's only one other player his size that I've ever ran and had the broad jump and the vertical leap that he had, and that's Calvin Johnson. So that's a good. That is a very good comparison to be in. And Chase Claypool is skyrocketing up boards right now, and I have him as the number 8 wide receiver in the NFL draft. So that's very, very exciting stuff right there. And then coming out of the SEC, a corner who played some offense coming out of high school and then switched to cornerback at Auburn, and that is Noah Igabuggy. I'm sorry, Ijibigi. I'm really not sure what his last name is. I just call him Noah Iggy. He's the cornerback from Auburn. He is my number 6 overall cornerback. He's got a lot of speed, and I'm really, really excited to see him in the NFL. I think he'll kind of slide in that slot area next year with whatever NFL team he goes to, and then maybe be a number 2 corner down the road. So my number 48 player coming from the SEC again, no shocker there. Number 5 running back, I have Clyde Edwards-Helaire, the running back from LSU. I have him as the number 48 prospect and the number 5 running back. Pro comparison, guys, he really reminds me a lot of Doug Martin. The way he runs, his body type is very, very similar to Doug Martin, lower to the ground. And Doug Martin, he came on the first few years in the NFL and really, really made an impact, especially fantasy-wise, too. What up, Kev? So I'm getting into my picks, my top 50 players right now. So far, I've had Chase Claypool, number 50 from Notre Dame, Noah Iggy from Auburn, number 49, and Clyde Edwards-Helaire, number 48 from LSU. Coming in at number 47, the former University of Georgia quarterback who did transfer to the University of Washington, Jacob Eason. I have him as my number 6 overall quarterback. It's really not about what he does with the football with his arms. I mean, he can throw the football. That's no shocker there. But I heard that he kind of looked out of sort in the meeting rooms with the NFL coaches, and he really did not interview well, is what I'm hearing. I think he reminds me a little bit of a Ryan Mallett type guy who can make the throws, big arm, big body, but what the NFL is going to with the RPOs and the very, very aggressive quarterbacks who get out of the pocket and scramble and stuff like that. I think that Jacob Eason will be a great backup. He may get a chance to start in the NFL, but I have him as my number 47 overall prospect. And another thing is quarterbacks, guys, they go a little higher than they're supposed to be drafted. So you'll see some guys on here. I have them a little higher than they probably should be, but everyone, quarterback drives this league. And Jacob Eason reminds me a lot of Ryan Mallett. What's up, Brantley? What's up, Miss Barbara? Thank you guys for watching. So I'm going to go to number 46, Cole Kmet from Notre Dame, tight end. A lot of Georgia fans know this guy. He caught 9 passes against UGA last year when they matched up between the hedges. He reminds me a lot of Austin Hooper, and it took Austin Hooper a few years to get comfortable in the NFL. But he had a heck of a season this year for the Falcons. He's going to be hitting free agency soon, so he may be an option maybe in the 2nd or 3rd round. I think he'd probably go in the 2nd round. I'm not sure if he'll sneak in the 1st round, but he's a very, very good player, so watch out for him. Also, number 45 player, A.J. Terrell from the cornerback from Clemson. Last time you saw him, he was getting burned by LSU and Joe Burrow. But just, if you look up all the tape from every player, all the great players have been burned once or twice. So he's a top 30 player on some people's boards. He slipped a little bit to me because of what happened in the national championship, but I have him going 2nd round. A.J. Terrell from Clemson, he's my number 5 cornerback. So going in at number 44, a player that you probably never heard of. I hadn't heard of him until a few weeks ago. He's a safety from Lenoir Rhine, a small school in, I believe, South Carolina or North Carolina. Correct me if I'm wrong. Kyle Duggar. He's a safety. What's up, Hector? He's a safety, and he's one of those small school guys that the NFL draft, the NFL combine has kind of fallen in love with. GMs love this guy. He reminds me a little bit of J.J. Wilcox, the former Georgia Southern great. He is going to probably go in the second round, and he's going to be a steal for some team. Kyle Duggar, who is climbing draft boards as we speak. The number 43 player on my board is Brandon Ayuk from Arizona State. He's my number 7 overall wide receiver, very physical. Love his tools. He's a great route runner. Herm Edwards has seen him in the last couple of years. He said he's an NFL receiver. So he also played with Neal from the Patriots in college. So he's been taught well. His receiver coach at Arizona State, and Herm Edwards says this guy is a great player, so watch out for him. Coming in at number 42, Antoine Winfield, the safety out of Minnesota. If you remember his dad, what's up, J-Rod? His dad actually played at The Ohio State University. Antoine Winfield went to Minnesota. He's my number 3 safety. Kind of reminds me of a poor man's Tyrann Mathieu, or, a little bit of a Bob Sanders. What's up, Taylor? He reminds me of a little bit of a Bob Sanders who played for the Colts, did win a Defensive Player of the Year award. He's got the genes, so I always look out for that. If your parents or cousin or granddad, something like that, played in the NFL, that matters to me. Antoine Winfield, he's not going to be shocked from the adjustment from college to the pros. I think it may take him a year or two to get comfortable, but in the next few years, you could definitely see him making a Pro Bowl. So Antoine Winfield, number 42. Number 41, offensive tackle from USC, Austin Jackson. Kind of in between that number. I've seen him between 4 and 7 on offensive tackles on people's boards, but I have him at number 41. He's a junior, he's raw, but he is a very, very good athlete, so look out for him to make some noise. And then my number 40 player, he's my number 1 center on the board. Could play guard at the next level, could play center, but I have Cesar Ruiz from Michigan. I have him as my number 1 center. So look for him to go maybe late first round, early second. What's up, TJ? So right now, those are my 50 to number 40 players in the NFL draft, guys. I've given you some comparisons like that. If you missed it, go ahead and rewatch it after the show, or listen maybe tomorrow on the way home from work. My next guy, a lot of you, this is a very polarizing player. A lot of people, you either really like Jake Fromm or you don't like him. You know what you get with Jake Fromm, and that's what I like. He's very good with his short intermediate passes. He's going to be great when he gets into a room, in a quarterback room. I know he interviewed well this past week. I've heard nothing but great reviews, and did not test well. He's not a very, what's up, Alan? Jake Fromm, he's not a very good, he's not going to run a fast 40. He's not going to throw the ball as well as some of the quarterbacks that were there, but his slants, his outs, his in cuts and things like that, he can definitely make those throws. He's smart. So I think, he does have his arm is not great, but there's been a lot of NFL players who have had great careers who haven't had the greatest of arms. He reminds me a little bit of an Andy Dalton type player, very smart, very cerebral. And Andy Dalton, has had like a nice little 8-year NFL career. I think that Jake Fromm, if he goes to the right team and the right system, and that's what's up, Charlie. That's what I'm hearing about Jake Fromm. If he goes to the right team, if he goes to the right to the right system with the right quarterback coach, and a veteran-led team, someone who. If he gets, comes in for a guy who's injured or something like that, I think he can rally. I think he can have a nice NFL career. I have him as my number 39 prospect, the number 5 overall quarterback. So Jake Fromm didn't have the great junior season like I thought he would, but I was very, very high on him. I thought he'd be a first-round pick. He still has a chance to be a late first-round pick, but everything I'm hearing is kind of the middle of the second round. So I know the New England Patriots are very high on Jake Fromm, so watch out for that name if Brady were to leave. No, I really don't think Jake Fromm is trash. He's not, like I said, he doesn't have the huge arm, but he's very cerebral. He can make the throws. You know what you're getting. It's all about system and where he goes. Number 38 prospect, I got Laviska Sheanut. He's a receiver from Colorado. Actually got hurt at the NFL Combine, so he's going to be out the next 4 to 6 weeks. Had him drop a little bit on my board. I had him a little higher until the injury. He's my number 6 receiver. Very, very physical. Good route runner. Has played in the Pac-12. And he's dominated the last 2 years. Number 37, some of you, what's up, David? What's up, Brian? My number 37 overall player comes from Auburn. Marlon Davidson, the DN. He's my number 4 defensive end. Him and Derek Brown, that defensive line, had a great year this season. Very, very, he has a high motor, Marlon Davidson, and I feel like he may be able to latch on. Defensive lineman, if you're not, one of these top guys, it does take a few years. D4 for, he's from Auburn. It took him 4 or 5 years to kind of get comfortable and make all that money in the NFL. So Marlon Davidson, watch out for him. I expect him to get about 5-6 sacks next season for whatever team he goes to, and you're going to get a steal in the second round with Marlon Davidson. The number 36 player, I have him the number 4 defensive tackle, Ross Blacklock from TCU. A very, very big guy. Moves well for 300-pounder. Really clogs up the hole. More of a kind of a nose tackle than like a 3 technique like some of our other guys we have on here. So watch out for him. Some teams are going to get some really, really good players in the second round. What's up, Justin? So, guys, if you're following along, we got about 10 people on live. Don't forget to comment, like, tell me what you think of my board so far. Taylor already disagreed with me a little bit on Fromm, but hey, that's just my thinking on him. I think he's going to be a decent quarterback and have a nice little NFL career. If he doesn't, he'll definitely be a backup in the NFL. So number 35. So we've gone 15 spots so far. Number 35, I got J.K. Dobbins from Ohio State. He's my number 4 running back. Very, very low to the ground. Very, very good runner. Ran for over 2,000 yards, I think, this year for the Ohio State. Kind of reminds me, in a way, a little bit of a Maurice Jones-Drew type back. And Maurice Jones-Drew came in, made an immediate impact. I think J.K. Dobbins is a guy you could look out next year for your fantasy team, in the late, 7 to 9 round next year, and he could really, really maybe be a running back 2 or a flex guy for you next year, depending on what kind of situation he goes to. So number 34, guys, is Josh Jones, my offensive tackle from Houston. He's my number 4 tackle, and he has skyrocketed. I know he's inside Mel Kiper's big board at he's like at number 25. Got him a little lower. I have him at 34. He's a redshirt senior, so he's older. He's 23 years old. You kind of know what you're getting out of him, and should plug in right away and play right tackle. If not, he could possibly play guard as well. So, so Josh Jones, University of Houston. Number 33 player, Zach Bond, the inside linebacker from Wisconsin. I've watched him play the last 2 years. He's very, very physical. Reminds me a little bit of an A.J. Hawk type or a Blake Martinez who played for the Packers. He reminds me of them a little bit because he's just physical. He knows where the ball's going. You follow him, you'll get to the play on defense, and he's a very, very good linebacker who's played in the Big Ten, a very, very physical downhill linebacker. So my number 32 player, and he's risen on my board a little bit just based off of what I'm hearing. I've heard he's a poor man, Pat Mahomes. What's up, Aaron? And Jordan Love, he threw 17 interceptions this year for Utah State. Was supposed to have a little bit better of a season, decided to leave early, and I'm hearing a lot of teams are liking him. A lot of teams maybe have a plan in place to maybe draft him, let him sit for a year, kind of like Pat Mahomes did, and then unleash him next year to the Wolves. I've heard the Saints kind of link to him a little bit. I've heard the Raiders link to him. I've also seen him going as high as 6 in some mock drafts. I've seen him between 6 and 15. So Jordan Love, what's up, Lee? Jordan Love is a player to watch out for, and he can throw it. He's a good athlete, but he did play in a lower division with Utah State. I know they got killed this year by LSU, threw 17 interceptions, but just the talent alone is there, and I feel like quarterback needy teams will kind of reach for him a little bit. I feel like he'll go top 20, kind of risen in the last 2 weeks for sure on my big board. My number 31 player, and I got to watch him a lot at FSU. Got to watch him a lot, and his name is Cam Akers. He was the number one running back in the country coming into college. He's my number 3 running back on the board. He is a very, very good running back, low to the ground, explosive, can catch the ball out of the backfield. Reminds me a little bit of a Kareem Hunt, and very, very excited to see where he goes in the draft. He'll probably go late first, early second round, and definitely had a good combine. So Cam Akers, a name to watch out for next year in fantasy football as well. What's up, Josh? And David is saying, Fromm should have waited till after next year to go into the draft. I completely agree, but sometimes, you don't know what's going on. I heard he didn't really want to, play with a bunch of new wide receivers, new offensive linemen, new running backs, and Kirby, who kind of just wants to play close games, run the ball, play defense, and get out of there with a low-scoring win. But you never know. You'll second guess it all day depending on where he goes. But we'll see what happens there. My number 30 player, guys. So we're in my top 30 now. Justin Madubike. He is a defensive tackle from A&M. He has risen up a lot of people's boards just because he's so big and can move. Ran sub 5 in the combine. 40. He's a very, very disruptive player, and NFL teams love that 3 technique, who can slide over, play in the one hole, play off also straight up against the center. So I think he'll have a nice little NFL career as well. Also, my number 29 player, he had a heck of a season this year for LSU, and that is Justin Jefferson. He's my number 5 wide receiver. Ran 4.42 at the 40 at the combine. His brother played quarterback. He had a little stint in training camp with some teams. He's got the bloodlines. He had Joe Burrow thrown to him last year. Really, really helped his stock. He's my number 5 wide receiver, guys. And a team to watch out for there is the New Orleans Saints. He's from Louisiana, and I know the New Orleans Saints need some more playmakers for Drew Brees. I've seen him linked there, so that could be late first round pick for Justin Jefferson. So I'm very, very Justin Jefferson had a heck of a combine. Now, he's a bigger receiver, 6'2", 230, 225 pounds. So he was really moving, David. My number 28 player is C.J. Henderson, the cornerback from University of Florida. He's my number 4 cornerback. He is a very, very good player in space. Can really, really lock up number 1 wide receivers. Can play in the slot a little bit, and he's 6'1", I believe. So he's going to have a very, very good career. I think he is going to go. I've seen him going in the first round. I've seen him going in the second round. So watch out for C.J. Henderson. Someone's going to get a steal later in the first round for him. My number 27 player is Patrick Queen, a linebacker from LSU. You're going to see a lot of LSU players coming up here shortly. Patrick Queen is the number 1. He's my number 1 inside linebacker. Can really, really thump you, and he is a younger guy, so he does have a little bit of time to grow. What's up, Will? Thanks for watching, man. So Patrick Queen, LSU, comes in as my number 27 overall player. As my number 26 player, who wasn't even the best corner on his team, that was Derek Stingley from LSU. But Christian Fulton was, a great number 2 for LSU this year, and I have him as my number 3 overall cornerback. And a lot of LSU players representing in this list so far. Number 25 player, I have Yet Gross Matos from Penn State. He's a defensive end, real big defensive end. Kind of reminds me a little bit of a Adrian Claiborne type player coming into the draft. So watch out for him. The Falcons, he could be up for the Falcons' first round pick at 16. So that's a name to watch for you Atlanta Falcons fans. My number 24 player, and he definitely rose up after the NFL Combine. And his name is Jonathan Taylor. He is a explosive back for Wisconsin, big running back who ran a 4.39 at the combine. Really reminds me a lot of DeMarco Murray, that bigger type back who can, when he hits that hole and he gets in that second level, he is gone, and he is going to be a heck of a player. I know some Wisconsin backs haven't had very, very good NFL careers, but Melvin Gordon has kind of switched that narrative the last few years, and I'm really, really excited to see Jonathan Taylor go probably late first round, early second round. My number 23 overall player and the number 4 wide receiver, T. Higgins, had an absolute great career for Clemson, 27 touchdowns in college. He is going to be a problem for some teams. Look for him to go early 20s in the draft. 6'3" receiver, runs great routes, can get vertical, and can run all the routes in the route tree. My number 22 overall player, Stephon Diggs' brother, Trevon Diggs, from cornerback from Alabama. He's got the genes in him, guys. I told you I already look for guys whose brothers and dads and stuff like that play the NFL. Had a great career at Alabama. He was a top 100 recruit coming in. Played some wide receiver his freshman year. So I always feel like that helps a little bit when cornerbacks have played wide receiver. Look at Richard Sherman. He played receiver in college and things like that. So Trevon Diggs, he's going to be he'll be a top 25 pick, I think. Teams are always looking for corners to cover these big freak wide receivers. So I got Trevon Diggs coming in as my number 2 corner. And then I got Grant Delpit, who slipped a little bit. I had him a little higher coming into the season. He was one of my top 10 players to watch last year coming into the season. Has fallen a little bit. I had him as my number 1 safety. He's dropped now to my number 2 safety. Grant Delpit will come down and hit you a little bit. Reminds me a little bit of Ricardo Allen from the Atlanta Falcons. So watch out for Grant Delpit from LSU. Should be a first-round draft pick, but we'll see. I know he's kind of sliding a little bit in this draft process. So my top 20, all you UGA guys watching, I got Andrew Thomas as my number 4 overall. My number 3 overall offensive tackle, and he decided to leave early. Had a decent NFL draft, but there were some other guys on the offensive line who did have better better combines than him. So Andrew Thomas, it should be submitted in the top 15, top 25 picks for sure. But Andrew Thomas comes in as my number 20 overall player and my number 3 overall offensive tackle. Tristan Wirfs, the offensive tackle or guard from Iowa, had a great combine. I think he ran like 4.85. He's like 330, 6'3", 330. He can play guard, can play tackle. He's rising up boards. I've seen him going as high as 9 in the draft, but I have him as my number 19 overall prospect just because you don't know what he's going to play, offensive tackle or offensive guard. And Diggs, and I've seen some people, rate him, a little higher, he's kind of a tweener. I think he may be a little bit better in the NFL, Tony, than he was in college. So, Delpit has disappointed and he has fallen a little bit, but I got him as my number 21 player. Andrew Thomas, number 20. Tristan Wirfs from Iowa. He could play guard or tackle. He's my number 1 guard. Kenneth Murray, the outside linebacker from Oklahoma. I don't know if y'all watched Oklahoma a little bit this year. He was all over the place. Can get after the quarterback a little bit. Can cover people in space. He's going to be a very key player to watch in this NFL draft. Depending where some other guys go. The guy right in front of him, K'Lavon Chaisson, from outside linebacker from LSU. I have him as my number 2 overall outside linebacker. The Atlanta Falcons have been linked to him. So Atlanta Falcons fans, be looking out for defensive ends, defensive type players. If we do not get Chaisson, I would have a guy coming up here at number 14 who I would really love to get. My number 16 overall player and then number 1 overall running back in the class, DeAndre Swift, running back from University of Georgia. He reminds me a lot of Matt Forte, catching the ball out of the backfield, running in between the tackles. Matt Forte, had a great career with the Chicago Bears, ended up with the New York Jets. If DeAndre Swift has that type of career, I think he would be very happy with that. So DeAndre Swift, look for him to go anywhere from 20 to 28. I know the Dolphins have kind of been linked to him, and some other teams he could go a little higher. Maybe if a team could trade up for him. So once a running back goes, then the running back market will start. So if DeAndre Swift does go a little earlier, you could see some of these other guys sneak into the late first round as well. So I got DeAndre Swift at 16, and a guy who probably had the best overall combine as for lineman, offensive or defensive, Mekhi Becton, from offensive tackle from Louisville. Huge human being. I think he's like 6'8", like 350. He's huge. He absolutely tore up the combine. I have him as my number 2 overall offensive tackle. I've seen him as high as number 4 to the Giants. I've seen him as late as 17, 18 as well in the NFL mock draft. So he is rising up boards. There's a couple players, guys, who are really, really improving their draft stock so far. So my number 14 player, an SEC guy from Alabama, and if you watch Alabama play this year, he was all over the field. Xavier McKinney, the safety from Alabama. I would love if the Falcons do not get the right guy, outside linebacker, pass rusher. What's up, Amanda? If the Falcons do not get a top edge rusher, I would love for them to maybe get Xavier McKinney with Ricardo Allen and then also Keanu Neal. He's missed the last 2 years with injuries. I feel like he could really, really be a Swiss Army knife in the backfield for the Falcons. So Xavier McKinney, one of my favorite players in this NFL draft. I have him as my number 1 overall safety. And then coming in at number 13 from Iowa, defensive end, AJ Espinza. He is a big, big defensive end. Kind of reminds me a little bit of Jared Allen, the former Minnesota Vikings defensive end. He's a very, very good player, can get after the quarterback. I think I'd rather the Falcons get him over Chase Young because Chase Young's a little bit more like Vic Beasley. I want a bigger guy who can, bull rush and get outside and sack. We need 10 plus sacks from a defensive lineman next year for the Falcons, definitely. So another name to watch there, defensive end from Iowa. Coming in at number 12, a guy who tore up the combine. I don't know if y'all saw his high school basketball mixtape. Henry Ruggs from the wide receiver from Alabama, number 3 wide receiver in my rankings. I have him as a Deshaun Jackson-like player. And yeah, Tony, you're right, man. McKinney is a real deal. I really like him, one of my favorite players in the draft. But Henry Ruggs, and you're going to see a run of Alabama players right now, guys. I got 1, 2, 3, 4. I got 5 Alabama players in the top 14. So Henry Ruggs from Alabama reminds me a little bit of Deshaun Jackson. Won't really return punts and things like that, but can be explosive receiver. And once he really gets his route running down and stuff like that, ran a 4.28 the combine. So Henry Ruggs has really, really skyrocketed. I've seen him going as high as I've saw the New York Giants drafting him at number 4. And that's a big spot that's going to come up in the NFL draft. The Giants at 4. What do they do? But Henry Ruggs, wide receiver from Alabama, is number 12 player on my list. Justin Herbert, the quarterback from Oregon, is my number 11 player. He's my number 3 quarterback. He's my number 3 overall quarterback. Reminds me a little bit of Andrew Luck. Not as big as a bruiser as him, but Andrew Luck ran a 4.65. I think Herbert ran like a 4.7, so very, very similar time there. Justin Herbert can also throw the ball very, very deep, and also he has very good accuracy, and he's very cerebral. I mean, he won the academic Heisman last year as a senior, so he's very, very smart. Is going to get into a locker room right away and win it over. And I would not be surprised if Justin Herbert starts week 1 next year for an NFL team. Watch out for the San Diego Chargers or also the Indianapolis Colts for Justin Herbert. So here's my top 10 players, guys. We've gone down from 50 down to the top 10. And number 10, guys, an SEC defensive tackle from South Carolina, Javon Kinlaw. Georgia fans, if you watched that UGA game this year, he was just causing havoc on that good Georgia offensive line. When I watched that game this year, I said, who is this Kinlaw guy? And he has just skyrocketed. He's the my number 2 defensive tackle, but some people have him rated above my number 1 defensive tackle. So what's up, Drew? So watch out for Javon Kinlaw. South Carolina could sneak in the top 10. If not, top 10 should definitely be a top 15 pick. Can rush the passer and also stop the run. So teams are really looking for that. My number 9 overall player, Jedrick Willis, offensive tackle from Alabama. He is my number 1 offensive tackle. He's got a little mean streak to him. Alabama fans, if you've watched him the last few years, he doesn't really play. Reminds me of the Pouncey brothers a little bit, but he's a little bit bigger, and he's going to probably play right tackle in the NFL. So Jedrick Willis, I've seen him go. He'd probably go top 10 as well. It's going to be exciting to see who drops and stuff like that and where some of these guys are going to go. But Jedrick Willis, I have him as my number 9 overall player and number 1 offensive tackle. What's up, Blake? Thank you guys for watching. I'm getting down to my top 8 players in my top 50 combine guys. So tell me what you think down below. Number 8, CeeDee Lamb, wide receiver from Oklahoma. I have him as my number 2 overall wide receiver. But he really reminds me, guys. I've seen him make some catches the last 2 years. He reminds me of DeAndre Hopkins a little bit, not just his physicality, but his route running and getting vertical and things like that. DeAndre Hopkins, reminds me. CeeDee Lamb reminds me of DeAndre Hopkins. My number 7 overall player is Tua Tagovailoa, the number 2 quarterback I have ranked, quarterback from Alabama. A lot of people have said he reminds them of a left-handed Drew Brees. He can make all the throws that when that ball spins off of his finger. I mean, it is just pretty to watch. Without this hip injury, I would have Tua over Joe Burrow. I'd have him ranked over Joe Burrow if Tua would not have hurt his hip. Joe Burrow has had a great season this year, but what Tua can do throwing the football is special, and if he goes to the right team, and if they have a good offensive line and can keep him upright, keep him healthy, I think Tua is going to have an amazing NFL career, and I think Tua is going to go no later than 3 in this NFL draft. I definitely don't see him going past 5, so 3 to 5 will be the spot to get Tua. You'll have to trade up to get him. The number 6 overall player, and probably one of the best route runners coming out of college since maybe Amari Cooper, Jerry Jeudy, the wide receiver from Alabama, number 1 overall wide receiver. Really reminds me a little bit of a Devontae Adams type. Devontae Adams slid in the draft. That's not going to happen with Jerry Jeudy. I know that Jerry Judy's linked to the Raiders, some other teams like that, so watch out for CeeDee Lamb or Jerry Jeudy to get drafted by the Raiders. And then once one goes, that's when the other ones will start going. So Jerry Jeudy, CeeDee Lamb, and Henry Ruggs, watch out for those 3 explosive players. So my top 5 players in this draft, guys. My number 5 overall player is a cornerback from Ohio State. He's my number 1 cornerback in the class, Jeff Okudah. He is a player who is very physical, 6'2". Doesn't really play around at the offense. I mean, with the offensive wide receivers, kind of puts his hands on them real quick, and he's not scared to mix it up with them a little bit. Really reminds me a little bit of a Aqib Talib type player. And if you remember, Aqib Talib for the Patriots for a few years was just an outstanding player. So Jeff Okudah, watch out for him. Should make a splash right away in the NFL. I wouldn't be surprised to see him on a Pro Bowl or an All-Pro team here in the next 2 to 3 years. My number 4 overall player, and this may shock some people. What's up, Taylor? This may shock some people, but I don't have Joe Burrow as my number 1 player. I got Joe Burrow as my number 4 overall player from LSU. Number 1, he is my number 1 quarterback, but like I said, if Tua was healthy, not coming off that hip injury, I probably would have him above Joe Burrow. He really reminds me a little bit of Carson Palmer, some of the throws he makes. Not as big in stature, and also can really get out of the pocket. That's one thing Carson Palmer did do a little bit, but I think Joe Burrow is a little bit more mobile and can make throws downfield. And look for the Cincinnati Bengals to draft Joe Burrow with the number 1 overall pick. But I know the defense wins championship, guys, and with these 3 top players that I have coming in, I just had to put Joe Burrow at number 4. So my number 3 overall player, Derek Brown, defensive tackle from Auburn. I have him as my number 1 defensive tackle. Reminds me a lot of Chris Jones, the defensive tackle from Kansas City Chiefs. Played his college ball at Mississippi State. I don't know if y'all remember him. Chris Jones. Derek Brown is a bigger human being than Chris Jones, and that's I don't know if y'all saw him run. He ran a 5'1". Derek Brown at like 360, like 6'6", like 360. What's up, Cassie? He ran a very quick 40 for how big he is. He's going to be a 3 technique right away. I expect him to get 5 or 6 sacks next year as well as stopping the run, and he's going to be a guy you watch out for the next 10 years. Derek Brown is going to be a heck of a player. I've been high on him since the beginning of last season. The number 2 overall player and the number 1 overall outside linebacker. What's up, Garrett? I have Isaiah Simmons from Clemson. 6'4", 230 pounds, around a 4.39. Absolutely moving, can cover guys in space, can also get after the quarterback a little bit, stop the run. He reminds me a lot of Levante David, one of the best tacklers in the NFL the last 10 years from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So Isaiah Simmons, Gonna go very, very high in the draft. And then my number 1 overall player, I have Chase Young, defensive end, Ohio State. He's my number 1 overall player and also my number 1 defensive end. So it reminds me a lot of Myles Garrett with his physicality, but I think he's a little faster. Chase Young, he's going to go no later than 3. I know the Redskins have the number 2 overall pick, so look for what's up, Mr. Drew? So look out for Chase Young to go to either the Washington Redskins, or he'll go number 3. He will not slide lower than 3. The only reason he won't go number 2 is if the Redskins drafted 2 or they traded out of the pick. So those are my top 50 guys. If you're just joining, I want to go over my top 10 real quick with you. I had Chase Young at number 1, Isaiah Simmons at number 2, Derrick Brown number 3, Joe Burrow number 4, Jeff Okudah number 5, Jerry Jeudy number 6, Tua number 7, CeeDee Lamb number 8, Jedrick Willis number 9, and Javon Kinlaw rounding out my top 10 players. Guys, if you missed my top 10, go ahead and rewind this, or go ahead and listen tomorrow when I drop my my podcast tomorrow on all platforms. So, what'd you think of the list, guys? I know some people weren't happy with some players. Joe Burrow number 4. That's just what I think. I think Joe Burrow is a heck of a player, but, I think about his season before, when he only threw 16 touchdowns. I think of him not being able to beat out Haskins at Ohio State, having to transfer. So things like that, he is a very, very popular player, very, very cocky player, and he's got all the confidence in the world, can make all the throws, and I think, Cincinnati's going to get a heck of a quarterback, and I have him as my number 1 quarterback, but I have him as my number 4 overall prospect, and I think just Chase Young is just too good to pass up, coming from my number 1 overall player. So, guys, tell me what you think. Tell me any players I left off that you wanted to see on there, and we'll kind of go from there, guys. So, very, very exciting list. Thank you guys for watching. I'm going to go ahead and wrap up the NBA a little bit. There's 20 games going on in the NBA right now. Zion and Luka Doncic face off tonight for the first time, and it really got me thinking. Which one would you rather have for the next 10 years? Would you rather have a Zion Williamson, a power forward, a little undersized, 6'6", 6'7", 285 pounds, has the injury kind of history with his leg, or would you have the 21-year-old Luka Doncic, who's been playing professional basketball since he was 15 over there in Europe, averaging almost 30 and 10 this season? I wanted to go ahead and put my little top 10 together of the top 5 players in the NBA who are under the age of 22. So a lot of good names to pick from, but I ended up getting it down to 5. And coming in at number 5 is Ja Morant. I have Ja Morant as my number 5 overall player under the age of 22. He's very, very explosive. Reminds people a lot of Russell Westbrook. He's averaging 18 and 10 right now. Got the Grizzlies at about a 30-30 record at number 8 spot in the West. So Ja Morant, Memphis Grizzlies, you struck gold with him. I think he's going to have a great NBA career. Coming in at number 4 on this list is the Atlanta Hawks point guard Trae Young, the first-time All-Star this year. He is a very, very exciting player to watch. Can dish it, can shoot the 3, averaging about 30 points. What he's doing reminds people a lot of Steph Curry. Hey, what's up, Miss Rhonda? So I'd have Trae Young as my number 4 overall player. Coming in at number 3, Jason Tatum, and he's been picking up a lot of steam for the Boston Celtics lately. Jason Tatum, guys, is my number 3 overall player. He is under 22. He just actually turned 22. Can you imagine if the 76ers would have just picked him at number 1 instead of the Boston Celtics? What he could have brought to Philadelphia, with Embiid and Ben Simmons. But, Jason Tatum now plays for the Boston Celtics, and watch out for them to make some noise with Kemba and Jaylen Brown. So my pick came down to Luka Doncic or Zion Williamson, and this was a very, very tough decision. I love Zion Williamson. I love the way he plays basketball, his motor. I love his emotion. He's a very, very fun player to watch. But Luka Doncic, what he's doing, point guard wise, or just he's a small forward who plays point guard basically. He's like 6'8", averages 30 points a game. He's got like 21 triple doubles under the age of 21. I mean, he is a freak athlete. I got Luka Doncic at number 1, and I got Zion Williamson at number 2 on my top 5 NBA players under 22, guys. Tell me who your top 5 players are, and tell me if I got my list right. What's up, Dad? Thank you for watching. So, I broke down my big board so far. I broke down the NBA. And the NBA, Milwaukee lost to the Heat 2 nights ago. They've lost to them now twice in the season. A lot of people are kind of jumping off the Milwaukee Bucks bandwagon. What's up, Holly? So I'm excited to see what happens there. Really, really want Milwaukee to face off against either LeBron or the Clippers. I think that would be just great for the NBA, but we'll see what happens. So the NCAA, we've talked about how much parity is in the NCAA this year. There's not that one-star player or that one-star team. I've given you some players to watch and some teams to watch out for. FSU is my team that should make a deep run in the NCAA tournament. Not just because I like the FSU Seminoles and Leonard Hamilton, but because they know how to play basketball and they're very athletic and they play defense. So also Obi Toppin from Dayton, he's a redshirt sophomore, redshirt freshman, redshirt sophomore. He's going to be a top 5 pick, probably a lottery pick in next year's NBA draft. They're 27-2. They play Rhode Island tonight, so that's a game to watch out for. And then number 1 Kansas, Azubuike, and then the guard they have. It's drawing a blank right now. The guard they have is very, very good. He's going to be he'll probably be a first-round draft pick as well. Those two are very, very good players. So who do you like this year in NCAA, guys? Who are you going to bust your bracket with? And let me know down below. So, got a little bit of baseball stuff with baseball and spring training. A lot of buzz going into 2020 season because of more people kind of paying attention to the Red Sox and the Astros sign stealing scandal. So is that good or bad for the? I know a lot of people would say it's bad for the league, but you got a lot of people who are paying attention to baseball in March that normally wouldn't be paying attention to baseball in March. So I've kind of heard it both ways if it's good or bad for Major League Baseball. But with people talking about it, they say all publicity is good publicity. So Major League Baseball, they cannot wait to throw out the first pitch and kind of try to move on from this Houston Astros sign-stealing scandal. So I know they're ready to do that. Guys, Braves fans, this Friday, the Braves play the Red Sox on ESPN at 1 o'clock. They're going to have some players mic'd up. I know Freddie Freeman will be mic'd up, so that'll be fun to watch. So all you Braves fans, they play at their new complex down in Florida. So very, very good stuff to watch there with the Boston Red Sox facing off against the Atlanta Braves. So I'll pick my division winners and my wild card teams next week. So be sure to check that out. XFL, guys. XFL has gotten 1 million viewers each week. So 4 weeks in, I want to give you a little bit of a breakdown right now. In the East, you have the St. Louis Battlehawks is at the number 1 team. They're 3-1. You got the DC Defenders coming in at number 2. The New York Guardians also 2-2, like the DC Defenders. They come in at number 3. And the preseason favorite, Tampa Bay Vipers, are 1-3. They just beat the DC Defenders this past weekend. So that's your East standings. The top 2 teams from the East will go into the playoffs versus the top 2 teams from the West. The West is looking like it's going to be Houston's division, but Houston Roughnecks, they are 4-0, followed by the Dallas Renegades, who are 2-2. They are the number 2 team. The LA Wildcats are also they're coming at number 3. They are 1-3, and Seattle Dragons, coached by Jim Zorn, former NFL quarterback. And former NFL coach, coaches the Seattle Dragons. They are 1-3 as well. So a lot to look out for if you are paying attention to the XFL, guys. The XFL does play this Saturday and Sunday, and at 2 o'clock on ABC, the Seattle Dragons play the Houston Roughnecks. And then coming in at 5 o'clock on Fox, you have the New York Guardians versus the Dallas Renegades. And then on Sunday, they're going to play at 3 o'clock on Sunday, and then they'll also play at 9 on ESPN. The St. Louis Battlehawks take on the DC Defenders on Fox Sports 1 at 3 o'clock on Sunday, and then at 9 o'clock p.m. So if you're not doing anything Sunday night, not having anything going on, check out the former Aaron Murray was the quarterback. Now they have Taylor Cornelius, the former Oklahoma State quarterback, as the Tampa Bay Vipers quarterback. Check him out versus the LA Wildcats on ESPN this weekend at 9 o'clock on Sunday, guys. So my picks, I want to go ahead and get to my locks. I go ahead and do my locks last every single week, guys. So if you missed it at the beginning of the show, I went 1-1-1 on my picks last week. But right now, I'm going to give you my picks for tonight. Last week, if you didn't hear earlier, I tied on the Maryland versus Rutgers. They did win by 1 point. The spread was 1. Wish they would have won by 2. I would have went 2-1, but they won by 1, so I tied. LSU +5 versus Florida. They lost that game overall by 15 points, so LSU didn't come close to covering. And then also I had Boston Celtics +5 versus Utah. They won that game. So I was 1-1-1 last week. This week, guys, I take my record of 11-5-1 into this week. I have FSU who's playing Notre Dame right now. I'm not sure what the score is. I got FSU -1.5 over Notre Dame out of the ACC, a team that I really, really love. And then also Virginia -2 over Miami, a team who's won like 8 straight in the ACC, just beat Duke, and they are tied for second place right now in the ACC, so a lot to play for tonight versus a hungry Miami team. Also, guys, I always give you an NBA game to watch out for tonight. Already talked about it a little bit earlier. Zion Williamson and the New Orleans Pelicans +6 over Dallas Mavericks and Luka Doncic. I'm taking the Pelicans. They're up-tempo style. Brandon Ingram, Lonzo Ball, those guys. I'm taking them tonight versus the Dallas Mavericks +6. Very, very excited to see them play tonight as soon as I get done with this. So those are my picks tonight. You heard it here first. FSU -1.5 over Notre Dame. Virginia -2 over Miami. And the Pelicans +6 over Dallas, guys. So it's been a heck of a show. I was really, really excited to bring you my big board. I will have this big board up on my Kicking It With Crowder page. So if you want to check it out, want to watch, also, I will have my mock draft coming soon. Probably going to come closer to the NFL draft. I'll probably drop that in April. So don't forget to follow along every Wednesday night at 9. Kicking It With Crowder. It's been a pleasure to bring you this show. Also, guys, do not forget to check out the Apple, Spotify, and iHeartRadio app. I'll put all the content out. Either tonight or tomorrow, so you can always check it out. And do not forget to rate and subscribe. What's up, Brandon? So, guys, you just tuning in to the end. I'm done now, but you can go ahead and rewind this, share it, like it, and also find me on Apple, wherever you find your podcast, guys. So, you've been Kicking It With Crowder. I've had a blast bringing you this content. What's up, Miss Trisha? I am out, guys. If you're still on the live, don't forget to go ahead and run back the live, and then check me out on Apple Podcasts, guys. I'm out. See you guys next week.